Joni Barrett, Out the Box Mind Body Studio, and I'm going to give you three exercises today that will help you strengthen some important muscles that we need for running. And I generally will do one of these every day, just as a daily practice, just to make sure that the muscles stay strong and remember what they're supposed to do. And so we need to have a little bit of discussion about where we're going to feel what to make sure that we're getting the right muscles. So the first one is going to be the lower and the upper part of the transverse abdominis. So this muscle goes from the hip points and wraps to the midline in this direction. And it's attached onto the pelvis via the iliums and the pubic bone. And it also wraps around the back side. So this direction on the back, coming around here. So a lot of times people will feel work in through here too. That's a good thing. And it also goes, the upper parts of it go below the rib cage on the pelvis and wraps again to the midline. So where everything is kind of pulled to the midline. The upper fibers on the back as well, just wrapping around. What you don't want to think is this action, because you'll feel abs, but that's the wrong one. This direction is the line of pull that we're looking for. All these three that we're going to do incorporate the transverse abdominis, so we really need to make sure it's always with us. And then we're also going to work this upper part of the hip flexors right here, and so again, it's important to know where they're at. So iliums come down, you'll fall into a pocket. If you don't quite feel it, sit back, come back up, keep that pocket. That's where the femur goes into the socket of the pelvis, the acetabulum. You want to make sure you know where that is, because that's where we're going to be looking for the muscle. And then the other one that we're going to work on is going to be hamstrings, and it's right here. Now when we do the hamstring exercise, plantar flex the foot, don't squeeze the butt. The butt, you might feel like I've got a little bit of tone, but it's definitely not driving the movement. Really want to isolate the hamstring here. Alright, so that being said, we're going to come down first onto our back, and the first one is really kind of a teaching opportunity so that you make sure you know where the transverse abdominis is, but it also will help strengthen it. So we're going to come onto our back, knees together, big toes touch, heels slightly gapped. Make sure that the low back is at least disconnected from the mat. So if the low back is pushed down, the abs aren't going to come on because we're in the wrong position. If it's connected, don't lift the low back, rather hip hinge. So you're just going to drop the pubic bone down, and it's very subtle. It's not a big movement at all. But all of a sudden, if you have it right, you're going to feel your abs suddenly working. And you can leave the hands here if that's beneficial, especially at the beginning. And then you're just going to lift up the right leg. And you should feel the tissue tone under your fingers, and you're below the belly button here. And then you're going to lift up the other one and back down. Now, if when you're here, the head is up at the ceiling like this, if your neck is crunched, you're going to put a blanket underneath the head so that the head winds up being level. Because again, we're trying to think of running, and we want that head in that good neutral position. Once you're confident that you know where the muscle is that we're talking about, then the hands are welcome to come out to the side. So this one's a little bit more challenging because now we have external rotation at that shoulder girdle. So again, it doesn't take much. And it seems like the smallest movement, but boy, it is really a good one, and it really translates well into walking and running. And if you notice, my legs are not moving very much. It doesn't take a lot. So just make sure you've identified that muscle, lower, upper transverse abdominis, and then we're going to sit up. We're going to come on to our butt. If you can't sit comfortably with the legs out to the front, sit up on some height. You want to be in the ischial tuberosities, so make sure you're in those sits bones. Legs are together, and as soon as you're in this position, you should feel that lower part of the transverse abdominis especially fire up. So again, this muscle is going to get worked in all of these. Make sure that you feel that. Take your thumbs, brush up, find those hip pockets, because that's where your muscle is going to be that we're going to use. Pelvis stays level, it doesn't move. So if you need to put the heel of the hand on the pelvis, do so. draw a leg back in and lift it up. Doesn't take much. It might talk to you. Bring it down, other side, draw it back, lift it up, and back down. Now, things to watch for, knees don't lock out. So we're not locking knees, feet stay relaxed. We're not working with the feet, we're finding these hip flexors. Make sure that you don't lift the pelvis up and down. Sits bones will be there to help you make sure that you're nice and level. And I would do 3 to 5. You know, again, this is one of those things that looks like it's not that big of a deal, and then you do it and you go, oh my goodness. So if you're having trouble getting lift off, you can always just bend the knee just a little bit. You know, just a little bit of support there. Just drag the leg up just a little tiny bit. You're looking for this muscle to pop. The longer you hold the leg, the more the quad will start to kick in. But if the only place you're feeling muscle work is out here, that's not what we're looking for. It's up here at the top. And it does take a little bit of time to be able to find it. Sometimes, especially if it's not one that you've used very much, the body might not have a clue of how to access it. So it just takes some practice. So if that is still too much, you can always bend the knees. And if you need support, bring the hands out and you can lift from there. And this one is not going to be as obvious, it's not going to be as intense, but it might be where you need to start, especially if you can't get any lift at all. And it works the muscles a little different, so it's not a bad thing. Make sure shoulders aren't up in the ears. You can assume the shape of the arm. Feet are still relaxed and soft. So no hard dorsiflex of the foot, just nice soft feet. All right, so that's number 2. Number 3 is going to be for the hamstrings. So we're going to need to come on to the knees to find those. And I'll go to the side. Knees are together. Tops of the feet are down. Make sure you have your hip pockets. Again, if you need to sit back, come back up. Make sure that you've got softness there, butt's not squeezing. You can just take the hands onto the backs of so glutes, hamstrings, lift, and immediately you should feel a hamstring muscle talking to you. Bring it down, lift, and you'll be able to tell if one side's not as strong as the other side, or if it cramps on you, then you know that's the one that really, really needs some work, because you want these to be strong. And really resist dorsiflexing that foot. We want that plantar flexion of the foot. When we're running, plantar flexion is what we're looking for. The ground will do the dorsiflexion for us. Abs, you should still feel that. We still got all that good work. And then once you're kind of confident that you've got it and you're not squeezing your glutes, you can always play a little bit and just do some circles. That will just intensify the work in the hamstring. You'll just feel it more. And it's also a really nice way to make sure that you're not moving at the hip to make the circle of the ankle, that the ankle's actually making the circle. You can do 5 circles. You can also play just kind of this little point and flex, whatever kind of feels good in the ankle there. It will improve your ankle mobility. So that's the hamstring. So those are the 3 to play with for those important muscles. So we've got lower transverse abdominis, upper transverse abdominis, hip flexors, hamstrings. And again, if you want to just don't even want to think like how many reps to do, you could just set a timer for 5 minutes and play with all of these just to get a sense of them, so that when you go out to run, you can look for your upper and lower transverse abdominis. You can look for your hamstrings. You can look for the hip flexors. You know what you're looking for. And the other benefit of doing this kind of daily practice is that if a hamstring is suddenly no longer working, you know it before things go bad, and you can kind of get it strengthened back up again. So play with it. Daily practice is really important. So this is Joni Barrett, Out the Box Mind Body Studio, and I hope you have a great day, and thanks for joining me.